Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a very special IMAA Insights and Innovation webinar today, where we welcome two very special guests and we have some very interesting conversations around what's happening in the media industry. Today's session is called Balancing Brand Performance and Creating Marketing Magic. My name's Sam Buchanan, the CEO of the IMAA, and joined by two special guests. We're going to explore how businesses can bridge traditional gap of their media and also brand marketing campaigns and performance campaigns as well. Marketers have been chasing this balance right for decades, and the struggle goes on. Whether it's data silos, compelling KPIs, attribution models, or too many campaigns, they're falling short of effectiveness and becoming, funnel fatigue. So this session will unpack what it really takes to align strategy and execution from upper funnel branding to lower funnel performance. And we'll talk about how it's backed by AI insights, first-party data, and emerging formats like CTV and BVOD. So let's meet our two amazing guests. So firstly, Alessandra Assaro. Have I pronounced that correctly? How do you pronounce your last name? Is it
Alessandra Alessio?
Alessia? It's such a lovely name. It just rolls off the tongue. Alexandria Alessia, who is the APAC Marketing Director of wonderful partners of the IMAA StackAdapt. She's got a tremendous background, many years at Google, now leading StackAdapt's approach to marketing across the strategy across all of APAC, and she's got an extensive experience in B2B marketing as well. We'll also be joined by Lin, who is the Head of Commercial Growth at Kantar. And both of you guys are coming from Singapore today, is that right?
That's right.
International guests, I might just weave that in. So fantastic. And obviously Kantar, the experts in measurement and integrated performance and marketing. So together, both StackAdapt and Kantar recently produced a brand marketing a report called Brand Building in Sustainable Growth in APAC report. So this is something that we are going to release to you guys later on today, whether it's in the to everyone on this call via email. I will also put it in the chat feature and also on the closed LinkedIn group for the leaders. So welcome both. And let's start with the obvious. Despite all the MarTech advances out there, conversion still remains a tough nut to crack. Alessandra, why do you think this is?
Well, thank you so much, Sam, and it's lovely to be here. So here's the paradox. Marketeers in APAC are nowadays drowning in data and tools, but at the same time, real growth still remains out of reach. And the issue here usually comes down to allocation. Performance spend normally dominates, but this often happens at the cost of building future demand. And because brand is really hard to quantify, it then struggles to get the investment. But the truth is, investing in brand has never been more important. In APAC specifically, we have seen that the imbalance is very clear. In our most recent study with Kantar, we saw that just last year, 49% of marketeers increased performance spend, but only 28% increased brand investment, which really means that too many campaigns are still optimized for the quarter and not for the long-term growth. And what happens is that when you lean too heavily into performance, then the baseline sales erode over time. It's a bit like you're running on a treadmill, you're just working harder, but you're not moving forward. And the real shift comes when brand and performance come in closer alignment. That's really when campaigns stop competing and they're gonna start delivering stronger results.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, Ali. We found that there's no real magic formula. And what we have found is that marketers must really deliberately course correct and find a balance that works for them. When we investigate different kind of categories, especially for retail brands, which are brands that you find available at shelves, we find that they can actually lift their baseline sales by up to 10% by shifting spend from a 70-30 performance to brand ratio mix to roughly around 50-50, right? And that's tremendous because just a simple tweak in your overall media mix can have such a dramatic impact on your baseline sales overall.
So essentially, marketers are under pressure to deliver short term, and this is skewing the priorities. Let's talk a little bit about how to fix that. When brand and performance work together, what does it look like on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I guess like integration is really about orchestration. When channels really operate in sequence, you've got your awareness, reinforcement, and then conversion. Then the compounding effect is exponential. In fact, it's more sequencing rather than span, which is the critical differentiator between campaigns that stall and then campaigns that scale. But at the same time, sequencing matters as much as the mix. We've run this analysis of 259 million impressions, and we've learned that adding just one extra channel lifted reach by 14%. And when that was done with a strategic sequencing, it delivered up to 8 times more conversion. And of course, on top of that, a predictive AI gives marketers the ability to really take this further. It helps to be allocating budget, adapting creative, refining targeting in real time, all done based on live customer signals. And that really turns integration from a manual process into an always-on growth engine. And with marketers focus on incremental gains, leaning so much into AI really gives them an advantage which they never had before.
Yeah. And I'll say, for brand and performance to work together optimally, my advice is really not to just look at the here and now. Now, of course, the devil's in the details. As agency partners, sometimes we don't have full control over what clients are eventually looking at. But the important message to deliver here is you really got to be thinking about measuring your ROAS beyond the in-flight campaign airtime itself and extend it out across multiple time scales, right? Whether you're doing it before to actually do like a comparison on a pre-post or looking at the effects after the campaign has ran, in order for you to not just overvalue your short-term outcomes, but also to avoid misattributing the impact, right? So when you include long-term brand impact in your measurement, we find that it gives a better picture of overall returns. Building equity on top of performance delivers stronger overall ROI, and it influences not just current buyers, but also future buyers. So you're really greasing the machine and not just pumping out stuff in the short term, even if that full effect takes a bit of time to show. And to make this work, you also really need smarter management. Too often we find that ROI is tied only to campaign windows, and therefore you are really shortchanging yourself. Our analysis at Kantar shows that media drives 13% of sales directly, but when long-term effects are included over time, that rises to a staggering 28%, which is more than 2x that of just the short-term impact. So the message really is, don't just optimize for the campaign. You've got to measure the business impact over time and set the measurement time frame even before the campaign starts to really get that whole thorough high fidelity view of ROI.
Amazing. Let's zoom in a little bit, unpack some of that a little bit as well. Alessandra, can you tell us a little bit about a real campaign where this approach has actually worked?
Yeah, there are actually a lot that we could pick from. One great example that we've seen at StackAdapt is with an Australian brand, namely Super Sleeper. They actually started with like native and display retargeting. It was effective, but very narrow. And then when we layered in video and CTV, conversions didn't just improve, they actually skyrocketed up to 812%. And the Super Sleeper case was not just about throwing additional budget and media. It was very much about that precision sequencing across the funnel, which I've mentioned before. And that's ultimately the level of orchestrations that APAC marketers need if they want outsized returns without having to upsize the spend. There is actually another example which shows more the value of refining the campaign measurement. This is a hospitality brand in Asia that we worked with. The brand decided to track cost per visit and not just cost per reach. And while cost per reach, reach costs were slightly higher, the visit cost actually exceeded target by 202%, which again showed us that they were ultimately on the right track with their tactics. So the overall lesson is very simple. Like omnichannel success is not just about being everywhere. It's just more about being in the right place at the right time with that correct sequencing.
Yeah, and I think I'll add on to that from a Kantar point of view, right? We know brand equity really well. So when you then take what Ali said, and you start to connect that to brand equity. And what we mean by brand equity is not just your standard metrics like awareness through to even brand used most often or loyalty. It's really across the whole suite. Then the effect starts to compound, right? Even a metric like awareness, it doesn't translate well into a business metric unless you talk about new users acquired or new users that are dormant, that are waiting to be activated. So for example, if we just take one statistic, right, like buyers with high brand affinity, in our experience, when we just look at the indicator of repeat purchases, those that have high brand affinity have double the repeat purchase rates compared to those with low affinity for your brand. And that loyalty has a multiplier effect. It actually multiplies the impact of every campaign over time. So it's definitely one of those things where the halo impact starts to accumulate over time, and therefore shoots off onto some of your other brands as well.
Amazing. So looking ahead, given that the marketing landscape is changing all the time, what should APAC marketers keep their eyes on if they want to stay competitive today?
I think I'm going to speak here from a StackAdapt team marketing lens perspective. And what I'd like to call out are like 3 immediate priorities, which are also focusing on. Firstly, there is a value in leaning into CTV and digital out of home. Those are measurable, targetable channels, and the Kantar research shows that optimizing across them can make campaigns up to 3 times more effective in driving brand equity, and that's significant. Secondly, we do focus on making first-party data our North Star. In a cookie-less world, like loyalty is going to matter more than ever. So it's very much essential that all the insights that we have are used to make the brand as strong and appealing as possible. And we actually have observed that brands with high affinity end up seeing repeat purchases above 50%, which is double that of weaker brand. And that's ultimately equity that you have to build. It's not something that you can buy. And lastly, AI, everyone is using it. It's not going to differentiate you. It's part of every marketer's toolkit. It's more how you utilize it that's going to count. And it's more about a real competitive edge here, which we should focus on, which is ultimately that level of distinctiveness. We should be building a distinct brand built on cultural empathy and first-party data. And ultimately, like, the future is not AI versus creativity. It's more that AI plus distinctiveness built on cultural empathy and first-party data. And that's really where I find the real edge will be.
Yeah. And structurally, I think future-proofing also means treating brand as an overall growth machine for your business, right? And that requires you to really do 3 things quite correctly. The first thing is rebalancing your split and be able to plan full funnel overall. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. Most people know the devil is in, again, the execution of that and being able to convince clients. Number 2, it's protecting your brand investment with evidence. And the evidence shouldn't just be, again, the short-term lift in buyers that are already purchasing, but understanding how you're really building the funnel at the very top and tapping into prospects for your business. And I'll say the third thing is really then start to deploy more advanced models. There are some measurement tools like brand health measurement. They can actually help you unify the tracking across the things that different teams are doing, right? Not just marketing, but also some of the other activities that are being done by, say, product and sales, to really unify that tracking across the different functions to understand the contribution and impact by different teams. And just so it's clear that this is not just the role of the client, agencies can also play a role here, right? Because we are typically the ones that are closest to the data, and we've got that view across different clients to take best practices from one client to another. So the role of the agency is really to help clients broaden their perspective and connect the dots across the different teams as well as across the different timelines overall.
Amazing. And I think that's great advice. Treating your brand like a growth engine is really, really helpful. We've talked about strategy and execution, but let's bring it back to business case studies. The StackAdapt and Kantar report shows even small gains in brand equity can deliver financial returns. Lynn, what is the commercial argument for brand investment right now? And it's been I guess an ongoing argument in the media industry for so many years, brands versus performance. But what is the argument right now for brand investment?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, Sam. So we have got to agree on the fundamental assumption that no business executive is going to be short-termed in the way they see how their business is going to live on, right? Now, of course, the pressures are focused on in-year, sometimes even quarterly type of returns, but we've got to agree that no business wants to be just here for the quarter, right? So the dilemma comes from we then need to be able to speak in a way that executives understand and to create a financial case for investing in brand. Because if you're always going to be talking about metrics and media metrics or vanity metrics that people don't understand, that's where you start to see a divergence in the way that executives see marketing teams and therefore the kind of commercial investments that are going to go into brand investment. And I'll just give you an example. One of the things that we look at Kantar is really how does brand equity link to things that are tangible like revenue growth, shareholder value. And one statistic that you should absolutely take away from today's call is that just a 4% increase in brand equity, and this is uncovered by Kantar data across a number of different clients over a multi-year period, 4% increase in brand equity can deliver up to 1.7% annual revenue growth. And just think about that in terms of a business that is multi-million, if not multi-billion in nature. That 1.7% is a tremendous amount of money to start bringing in for the business, right? And that 4% increase in brand equity doesn't have to come at the expense of way too much. It's just that consistent brand building effort over time. And not only that, it actually can deliver shareholder value ROI of up to 8.7x as well. And I think that's something that is very demonstrably powerful to executives because you start to speak at the same language. The other thing that we look at is even if you're not punching at executive level, right? You want to be able to tangibly prove that marketing can actually move other levers that are important to the business as well. Let's come a bit closer to home and let's look at something like price. In our research, we find that strong brands, they actually command a 14% price premium over others. And they start to enjoy the benefits of people being more loyal, which then again creates that virtuous wheel of people pay more and they're also loyal to you, right? So it's a really positive effect of them being with you in the business and also paying more. And again, echoing what Ale said, right? The repeat purchase rates are almost twice as high as those with weak affinity. So the case for brand equity is clear. There is both improved marketing effectiveness as well as elevated ROI. And that's the language that boards, CFOs, executives respond most well to.
Yeah, I think Lynn has already summed it up really well here. There are some major bottom line benefits for businesses that invest in brand as well as performance. But I also must admit and take a moment to acknowledge that this can be a hard sell internally sometimes. And for marketeers, being able to demonstrate this to senior management, it's definitely an important thing. So considering things like brand lift studies, not just for how you present your case externally, but also how you actually sell internally a shift of priorities to the organization.
Great advice, Alessandra. So we're running out of time rapidly, but we've got a few more questions to go through. What is the one takeaway you would like people to remember from today?
Well, here's mine. Strong brands multiply results. In APAC, all the evidence shows that performance currently dominates. That's clearly what we're seeing. But the evidence, everything we've discussed, is very undeniable. Strong brands deliver 9 times more volume. So if we treat brand investment as just a nice to have, then growth is not going to collapse over time, like overnight, but it's going to slowly bleed out over time. Instead, we should be treating brand investment more as a fuel, and that's how you're going to start compounding results rather than having to chase them.
Yeah, and if I had one takeaway to add to that as well, look, Kantar as a business is heavily tied to the word brand. Our abilities to survive over the number of years that we've existed, and our ability to survive into the future as well, has got to be in the power of brand. We genuinely believe it. We have a tool that's called BrandZ that really tracks how brands perform over time, and we've just reached the 20-year anniversary of that. But what's really powerful about something like a BrandZ and why we're able to sustain our existence into the future is because we have something that's called a meaningfully different framework. And essentially, we boil the ability of a brand to thrive and to be able to succeed into the future into just three things: how meaningful you are, how different you are, and how salient you are in the minds of consumers. And what we've found over the course of the many years that we've run brand research is there are just two metrics to really focus on if you do not care about anything else, and that's meaningful difference. Because brands that are meaningfully different, they can actually command almost 5 times the penetration that they have today, and they have a clear advantage to grow into the future as well. But not only that, the metric that I've just talked about is something that we call demand power, but we also have something that's called pricing power, and we look at how MDS fuels these two things. And pricing power is the ability to just charge more because consumers see you as being worth more as a brand overall, and I'm willing to be able to pay to match that perceived value that your brand is giving me. So put simply, and this is the Kantar point of view, but I think it really should be all of our point of view as marketers. Brand equity is not a nice to have. It is a must have, and is the foundation for long-term profitability, and we've got to be able to safeguard that.
Fantastic. And one final question for you both. We'll start with you, Alexandra. Give us your quick predictions for 2026. I know StackAdapt, I've seen the past, are very, very good at their predictions and what's coming. So what's coming ahead of us?
Well, first of all, it's already Q4 and 2026 is just behind the corner. But I can anticipate like 3 focus areas which are going to shape very much marketing in the region. The first one is really the use of measurement as proof of values. CMOs are going to need to prove how brand and performance ladder into that sort of one growth story, or they're going to risk budget cuts. And so going back to what we discussed earlier, the more marketeers can actually do to promote this narrative, the better. The second one is like channels like CTV or digital out of home should be used as performance channels. They are going to be measured on ROI, just like search and social. And early adopters are going to dominate the share of voice. At the same time, it's important that marketers need to be careful not to lose sight of the fact that those are still brilliant channels for brand building. And just because we can measure more, it doesn't mean that we lose sight of what the channels do for brands. And the third one is probably a focus on simplification and orchestration. Platforms which can be very straightforward, which allow that sort of end-to-end orchestrations of campaigns, will be in higher demand. We all know here, digital landscape is going to become more complex. Marketers, are already trying now and are going to strive to do more with less. And so finding those partners that can make your life easier is going to be more crucial than ever. So those savvy marketers are going to be the ones that are going to be leaving away those Frankenstacks and aiming to consolidate with all-in-one AI-powered solutions.
Yeah, and I think I echo what Ali said in terms of the predictions. But if I layer on my view as Kantar and going back to the truths that I know in the MDS framework, there is just one prediction. Brands that get performance and brand building balance right, and this requires several things. It requires experimentation. It requires boldness, to being bold in order for you to be able to convince clients to make shifts and to pivot away from things that are incumbent today. If you're able to do that, you will start to prosper. You will start to see the benefits and returns being reaped. Again, I go back to our meaningfully different framework. We found that really balancing that full marketing mix, and the stat that I quoted at the very start, which is just shifting it from 70-30 to 50 and 50, delivers a higher baseline ROI of 10%. Baseline ROI really is about your money that just rolls in without you being able to pump in further marketing, right? It is the positive effects of your brand just being present on shelves and people connecting it in their minds to value. And it's not something that you have to, invest that much more money in. And therefore, it's very, very powerful if you're able to prove that, again, just shifting that mix will be able to result in that bump in baseline sales. But not only that, when you start to integrate your end-to-end creative and media programs to really achieve that full marketing mix effect, your campaign ROI can be boosted by up to 40% overall. And that's, again, very powerful, right? Because one is you're shying away from just talking about vanity metrics to really even things like ROI, but being able to deliver up by 40% by just having that integration, in my perspective, as an agency marketer myself, it's really, really powerful.
Amazing. Some really interesting and big numbers in there, guys. So very, very powerful. All of this information and more can be found in the Brand Building for Sustainable Growth APAC report, brought to you by StackAdapt and Kantar. So we'll make sure that is circulated around to everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. Please thank our wonderful guest, Alessandro Asado, and also Lin Lim as well for joining us all the way from Singapore. It's been a fascinating chat. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.